In most countries around the world, you have a debt problem that simply can't be paid back without a major catastrophe occurring. This is something that I've discussed many times, and I continuously get shot down about it, but I will continue to speak up about it. Why? Because we have quadrillions of dollars in derivatives that have been printed up and are sitting on top of the financial system globally, and the real threats are imminent. I don't care, because this global economy is dead and the central banks can't fix it. So I'm going to speak the truth, and I hope that you will join me. Record 92 million people are not in the labor force, and also the participation rate is matching a 36-year low. These are the real statistics. Do not look at the false unemployment rate. That doesn't mean a single thing. Sure, it's an indicator in some ways based on what the government wants to provide, but doesn't actually show anything to do with the real economy. You have the record amount of people that are simply not working right now, and this doesn't make any sense when you have the unemployment rate continuously going down. There is this great divide that is occurring. And speaking of the unemployment rate, you have black unemployment at 11.4%, a number that continuously increases, yet Obama at the same time said, look at all the figures since I've been into office up until today, and they've all been better. He knows that he can say this because, quite frankly, nobody's going to even look to check it out. They just believe everything he says. Like when he said prior to, when he was doing his campaign in 2008, he said the first thing I'm going to do is bring my troops home. And not only did he not bring them home, but they have a continuous war in there, and they've gone back into Iraq. This is a joke. Now look at this global problem that we're experiencing. Spain launches a 50-year bond through private placement, and they're getting 4% on that. And they know that this is not going to happen. They're not going to be able to pay it back simply because of the fact that they're all going to tumble downward. Europe is in dire straits right now. It is not going to go anywhere because of one interest rate, one currency, trying to dictate policies through an unelected set of technocrats to all these countries. It doesn't make an ounce of sense to me, but of course it is quite humorous if it wasn't so devastating. This is interesting here. This is out of Australia and New Zealand Banking Group Limited, ANZ, foreign currency deposit interest rates. And take a look at this. They are offering you a whopping 0% on your money. That's how good your money is worth. It is going to get you 0% if you put it in this wonderful asset. And this is the type of thing that I laugh at all the time, because individuals pour their money into these paper assets when they're getting nothing back. Now, this doesn't even factor in inflation. Even the fake inflation number that they provide to us of, let's say, 2%, this is nowhere near that. You want to know what's happening globally? This is it. You're getting nothing on your money. You're losing it every single day. Right here, this is interesting. Department of Defense can't account for $3.3 billion given directly to the Afghan security forces. $3.3 billion, and that's what they're going to tell you about. Now, this connects in with something else. I'll just mention this first. The Afghan government lacks the basic controls to provide reasonable assurance that funds were spent appropriately. Why in the world is foreign aid being given to this country when you can't even make sure it's going to the right people, to the right places? And the fact remains is that you can't. It shouldn't be happening. There should be no foreign aid to these countries in this way. The way they're doing this right now is simply funneling money into the wrong hands, and that's why there's continuous war, and that's why there's continuous hatred that goes on. It's being fueled by this military-industrial complex. And this connects in with this right here. You have a fractional reserve system that sits on top of the real assets. In addition to that, on top of that, as I discussed in the beginning of the video, you have the derivatives. The derivatives are a huge problem right now. Why? Because they're simply, first of all, not being discussed at all. Yet there are approximately $1.5 quadrillion worth that we know about, that they're talking about, according to the BIS, Bank of International Settlements. And they're saying, there's about 25 times more derivatives than there is of all of the GDP of the entire world. That is absolute fiction when you think about it. It is so gigantic. You can't even imagine that. And this is how I do it in my book. I show you this little chart a few times just to get your mind around the difference between real assets, fractional reserve, which is already a fraud. It's on top of that. And the derivatives just destroying it all. You cannot pull away from the system. It can't be done. They can't save it. A 50-year bond, a 100-year bond, a 1,000-year bond. You can run that bond out into the future forever and ever, but quite frankly, nobody is going to take it in the end, because something huge has to happen for this all to come down, for this all to change. There is going to be a change in the monetary system, and something big is going to have to happen at some point in the near future. Now, going back to what I was just saying a moment ago about how the Department of Defense can track that $3.3 billion going to Afghanistan. This was out of the Department of Defense as well, and it was one day before 9/11 occurred, and they said that we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions. Now, this money is going to the wrong hands. It's pretty clear. Now, where is this $2.3 trillion going? I'm not exactly sure. However, if you look at what's happening in Afghanistan, you know that the opium production has skyrocketed. It's gone from, I believe it was about 10% of the world's opium production all the way up to over 90%, and the money that's being used for the military-industrial complex is protecting the opium fields, and it's being shipped out. It gets sold in the United States, in Canada, in the UK, and so on and so forth, and then as soon as an individual here is caught using it, they're put in jail, many times in the private jail systems, and then they are allowed to be used as basically slaves, making almost nothing per hour and making their goods, and so on and so forth. This is a total fraud, the total fraud that this system is. This is what I see the system as. It's an upside down pyramid. You have real assets on the bottom, the derivatives and the fractional reserve banking on top, and it's going to topple over. There is absolutely no question about this that I have at all. Now, if you enjoyed this information, of course, when I say that if you enjoy it, I don't mean that you like it. What I mean is that if it's informative to you, if you want to share this information, I really would appreciate you sharing that on your Facebook and your Twitter and so on and so forth. And don't forget to give me a thumbs up all the time. That really helps me out, because it signals to the other YouTubers that this is a good video, this is good information. And don't forget to become an insider. The Insiders is where I give out all my best intel for free, and it's at themoneygps.com. You scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.